To international online class. Welcome to all participant college, our guest lecture, our dean, our guest lecture to international online class. Second, udah masuk. Oh ini ya, boleh boleh. Oke. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Welcome to all participants, our guest lecturer, our colleagues, to international online class, Faculty of Engineering and Science, Universitas Ibn Khaldun, Bogor. Thank you for your attend. Terima kasih untuk kalian. Thank you for your time. Lah, kok aku jadi dua? Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Kedengaran nggak suaraku? Oh, masih mati ya? Kedengaran? Enggak. Suaraku kedengaran nggak di situ? Nah, coba. Ya, dengar ya. Tadi kamu cerita. Assalamualaikum Bu Fitri. Lagi ngajar nih Bu Fitri.
Di atas mana?
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Prof. Mira, sudah hadir?
Waalaikumsalam, sudah.
Salam kenal Ibu, nama saya Dr. Tika dari UIKA, Universitas Ibnu Khaldun.
Iya, salam kenal Mira dari IIUM.
International Islamic University ya Bu ya.
Iya, betul.
Baru ketemu hari ini nih, insya Allah kita.
Iya,
Saya
alhamdulillah. Terima kasih sudah kalau orang Malaysia sebetulnya sudah dijemput, sudah diundang.
ini topiknya juga sangat ini ya Bu ya, trending sekarang ini. Jadi memang kita angkat sebagai topik yang bisa untuk digunakan
Iya,
seluruh prodi ya, seluruh jurusan di Fakultas Teknik.
oke. Siap, siap. Ya.
Di sini ada Ibu Fitriani juga ya sudah hadir ini.
Assalamualaikum, Mira. Punten nih bisa buka kamera.
Waalaikumsalam. Iya, iya, iya. Kabar?
Alhamdulillah sehat ya.
Alhamdulillah.
Ini kita hari ini transforming halal industri. Jadi memang di sana lagi trennya sedang halal industri ya Bu ya. Yang
Iya, karena visinya Malaysia kan mau jadi apa halal hub buat halal ya, buat halal industri. Um, jadi memang di mana-mana spiritnya selalu kayak gitu industri apa halal industri, halal tourism, halal nanti mungkin saya cover sedikit di slide insya Allah.
ya, itu mungkin di awal karena biar masuk ke seluruhnya kita di Fakultas Engineering ini ada 7 program studi, 7 jurusan, ada sistem informasi juga, teknologi informasi, teknik mesin, ya, teknik sipil, semoga nanti bisa teman-teman yang lain juga bisa mengambil manfaatnya untuk materi hari ini. Di sini juga sudah hadir Ibu Wakil Dekan kita, ada Bapak Setia.
Iya, assalamualaikum.
Assalamualaikum Bu.
Waalaikumsalam.
Bagaimana Pak kita mulai?
Tunggu.
Pak Dekan belum hadir ya. Pak Dekan sudah. Sebentar Ibu kita tunggu.
Boleh,
Pak
siap,
Dekan.
siap. Oke.
Nanti kita deliver in English ya Bu ya di awal.
Ya.
Nanti mahasiswa jika ingin bertanya boleh dalam English, boleh dalam bahasa ya.
Boleh,
Deliver
boleh.
in bahasa bisa ya Bu ya.
Oh, bisa. Bahasa Sunda juga bisa.
Oh, Ibu bahasa Sunda juga masih bisa.
Iya, besar di Bandung.
Oh, besar di Bandung. Saya pikir udah lupa nih bahasa Sunda.
Biasa, insya Allah.
Baik, kita tunggu sebentar Ibu ya.
Siap, siap, oke.
Jam 1 soalnya, diingetin nggak?
Bapak. Ya, nih. Tak main Bu, tak main. Cuma buka aja.
Gimana Kak? Dimulai? Oke, selamat datang Pak Dekan.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, Ibu. Apa kabar?
Alhamdulillah ini Pak sudah guest lecture, sudah hadir juga bersama kita Prof. Mira.
Terima kasih. Selamat datang. Assalamualaikum Ibu Mira.
Kita mulai saja Pak ya. Baik, kita langsung memulai kegiatan hari ini. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Alhamdulillah. Thank you for all participants. Thank you for our guest lecturer, our dean, and our delegates. Welcome to International Online Class, Faculty of Engineering and Science, Universitas Ibnu Khaldun Bogor. Today we will discuss about trending topic, about artificial intelligence, big data, and now the special topic is transforming halal industry, harnessing the power of big data. Thank you for our guest lecturer, Professor Technologist Dr. Mira Kartewi, for your time today. Thank you for our Dean, Faculty of Engineering and Science, Bapak Dr. Nanang Prayudyanto. Today, before we start our class, we will hear welcoming speech from our Dean. Time is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Tika. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Muhammad Nanang Prayudyanto. First of all, on behalf of Faculty of Engineering and Science, City of Ibnu Khaldun Bogor, Indonesia, I would like to welcome all of you to our second international class. Thank you for being here with us today. I also would like to express my sincere appreciation organization of this event, Dr. Satya Parmasutisna. Thank you so much for your leading your team to create this gathering. In today's class, we would like to learn about transforming the halal industry, harnessing the power of big data and AI, artificial intelligence. Professor Theology Dr. Mira Karti will present her experience At this time, the global halal industry has shown significant development. Indonesia has become one of the countries that great potential for the development of halal industry and products, particularly in the food, tourism, pharmaceutical, and cosmetic sectors. As the halal industry continues to expand, the role of artificial intelligence (AI) in the sector is becoming increasingly important. AI can help the halal industry in several ways, from ensuring halal compliance to improving the efficiency and productivity of halal supply chain. I hope that this class will help broaden your knowledge, develop technology, and achieve our vision as Faculty of Engineering and Science to be excellent, internationally and Islamic compliance in the applied and technological innovation. That's all for me. Now I will leave the rest to Dr. Tika Hafsala Siregar to start our class. Thank you very much for listening, Dr. Tika. The floor is yours. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Okay, I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Dr. Tika Hafsala Siregar. I'm from Faculty of Engineering and Science, Universitas Ibnu Khaldun Bogor. Today we'll be conduct this discussion, this international class. Before we start the class, I will introduce our guest lecturer, Professor Technologist Dr. Mira Kartiwi. Our guest lecturer is from International Islamic University Malaysia, Kuliah of Information and Communication Technology. The expert in data, big data and AI, artificial intelligence. And the bachelor degree from University of Wollongong, Australia, from bachelor until PhD. Yeah. So today we will discuss much about information technology, especially in power of big data and artificial intelligence. Maybe the many students coming here, so we will hear the lecture and we will discuss, or if you want to ask, you can deliver in English or in Bahasa Indonesia. It's okay, yeah. If you feel difficult to talk in English, you can deliver in Bahasa Indonesia. So we will start our class today to Professor Mira Kartiwi. Screen and time is yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Tika. First, I would like to convey my thanks and appreciation to the Dean of Faculty of Engineering, Prof. Prayudayanto Muhammad, and the Deputy Dean of Faculty of Engineering, Dr. Satya, moderator of the session, Dr. Tika, as well as all faculty members and students of Universitas Ibnu Khaldun. So it is a great pleasure for me to actually be with everyone today. I feel humbled and I feel so honored to be with all of you today. I know this is a very rare opportunity for me to see everyone in virtually, let alone in person later on someday, inshallah. But I'm looking forward to actually not only sharing the knowledge, but also learning from all of your questions, learning from all of your feedbacks throughout the session. So, Alhamdulillah, and I would like to say Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin. Alhamdulillahilladzi hadana li hadza wa ma kunna linahtadiya laula an hadana Allah. Asyhadu an la ilaha illallah wa asyhadu anna Muhammad abduhu rasuluh. So, as has been mandated by Dr. Tika just now, my topic would cover the so-called the trending topics. It's actually been around for quite sometimes. In fact, if we are talking about big data, it has been a hype since 2010 when industry actually first coined the term. So it's not something that is new, but because of a lot of confusions and things that maybe not were not grounded properly. So we kind of want to bring this to the young generations and see whether you would want to uncover the hype even further, or maybe you would want to redirect the trend. Okay, so let me just share the screen, see whether I could actually get the slides. Is it clear? Can you view this slide?
Clear, Prof.
Okay, great. All right, so I have highlighted just now the topics that was actually requested. In fact, we do have a few brainstorming sessions with Dr. Fitriani because she's the one that reached out to me, and then I highlighted some initial topics, but knowing that it will be for engineering students and faculty members, maybe we should give some emphasis on the technicalities. I'm not sure whether I will cover the technicalities extensive enough, but at least perhaps I could nudge, I could trigger some discussions, hopefully through the question and answer. Then probably we can, again, as I've mentioned earlier, we could uncover the term even more deeper, even more meaningful during the discussion. So this will be the landscape of our learning journey today. We're going to have a look on the halal industry in general and how it's actually the significance of the industry. We would be able to, then we're going to have a look on the power of big data. Again, as I said, it has been a hype for quite some times. At least 2010 was kind of like the first industries actually coined this at public level. But I'm very sure the term that comes with it are not new at all. In fact, when we are talking about machine learning and all those kind of data analytics has been around for the age that we've been collecting data for many, many, many years. So this is the second part of the discussions. The third one, then we're going to have a look on the AI. As well as how to harness the technologies in the industry. And then something that perhaps it is not technology or it's not technical, but I think it's very good to bring these kind of narratives into our discussions, because be that as an technologist or be that as an education, I think we have educationists. I think we have to always look our output, our deliverables in the eyes of ethical considerations and human expertise. Because after all, we're going to have implemented this to human, for the human for the benefits of the human and mankind. So in this case, I think we always have to think about the ethical considerations and human expertise. So let me just proceed to the first topic. I'm very sure when we're talking about halal industry, it's not new, especially for us in Indonesia. We have been having all these kind of labels. Everyone would probably think about when we are going through some newer products. The first thing that people actually converse is whether the status is halal. When the eateries, restaurant is actually open, the first thing that people would actually ask whether it's halal. So I think halal is kind of close to us, especially in mostly majority countries. But again, what we often forget that it has, what is very fundamental with halal is actually the nature that of this label is actually, this give us some kind of assurance that when we are talking about things is halal, means that it is permissible, it is allowed for us to consume, allowed for us to wear, allowed for us to actually benefit from. So the notions of permissible is actually what underlies halal. It's not so much just the ingredients, it's not so much just the what comes into our plate, but it actually covers the entire sequence of how things were actually even how things were when you are trying to put seeds on the ground. That's even that kind of things will have to sort of comply with the notions of halal. And I think all of us aware that Muslim must ensure that whatever they consume comes from halal sources. So the source is actually one of the things that has to be audited, has to be assessed. and also not just the ingredients, but also the entire production. So this is what I meant earlier, that it has to cover the entire processes. It has to cover the process of handling from start to finish. So the whole thing is actually needs to be assessed. And this is why this kind of notions of halal industry is becoming very interesting, and later on we're going to have a look on the landscape of who actually been using all these services. We might actually think that Indonesia is the biggest, but later on we will be able to have a look whether it is actually the case, and then we will be able to see whether all this potential can actually be something that relate to us and we can actually take benefits from. Right. If I can refer to the, I'm trying to see something that is related to Indonesia, but I think maybe because yesterday I've been trying to find a much more global, and in fact, what is interesting is that in the global report, they actually refer to this one definitions given by Jack Kim. So if I can just refer to this, and excuse me if I couldn't get any references for Indonesia per se, but I'm very sure you would be able to get it much more easily than me. So what was covered in that particular report actually highlight the notions of halal. It actually covers the product and services, so not only the thing that we consume, but actually even services. You have to make sure that it well guarded in terms of the halal status, covering the packaging, the marketing, the manufacturing, the logistic, the supply, the maintaining premises, the slaughtering, and so on. So it is very, very extensive, very detailed, and very opens a lot of rooms for improvement if you want to optimize. Right. If I can go further on the diverse sectors and areas within the halal industry, as mentioned by the dean earlier, it is very broad. It's very wide in terms of the industry. It's not only the food and beverages, but it's also cover the pharmaceuticals, the cosmetics, fashion and apparel. I think maybe we often forget this is something that we also have to put under the halal industry, like for example the hijab, all those kind of apparels, accessories, everything has to be part of things that we would cover as in the area in halal industry. And in fact recently we do have this a lot of convention has been made on the halal industry, and recently there was one in KL, which is one of in Kuala Lumpur, which is one of the biggest halal conventions as well. And what is interesting is that a lot of small medium enterprises in Indonesia, especially in the case of fashion and apparel, they're actually showcasing the product, and the tag of halal comes with all this, with the industry as well, which means that people are aware of fashion and apparel is also part of the halal industry. Tourism and hospitality, finance and banking. And what is interesting again with finance and banking is that now people are actually looking at into investment. People have been more and more Muslim are aware of the danger or the issues of riba and all those kind of things. So to move away from all those notions, people have been trying to figure out how to actually provide platforms for halal investment. So in this case, even finance and banking industry is part of the ecosystem of halal industry. Media and entertainment. Recently, I think a few years ago, one of the browser, one of the vendor, one of the, I don't know how to put it, a company, I think I could say it's a company that actually initiate the browser halal, some kind of like a browser for Muslim, approached me and asked whether we could actually collaborate on the notions of providing browser that is sort of halal for the audience. So I think and what is interesting, maybe before I go into the next one, what is interesting is that the investors was not Muslim. So the actual investors that created the company was not Muslim. So what is interesting for me is that this halal industry have not only been perceived as potential by Muslim, but also for non-Muslim, because they know we are so attached with the notions of halal. We are so careful with the notions of halal. So for them, it's something that is a very promising, very unique market that they can actually tap into. So in this case, even media, and I think now you would be able to see a lot of programs, especially for our children, that has been designed in such a way so it actually complies with the Islamic values. That is also part of the halal industry. And last, of course, not last and not least, we do have the industry of certifications itself. So in this case, I think we have such a huge landscape. When we are talking about halal industry, we have moved beyond the perceptions that is only for food and beverages. We have actually expanded to the level of that it actually applies to all diverse industry sector. Let's have a look first. I think another thing that perhaps could sort of remind us that it is not only locally in Indonesia or in Malaysia or in ASEAN countries, but it also covers worldwide. So if you have a look here, the global market size of the halal industry alone is covers 2.11 billion. So it's huge market, and then it covers from the traditional retailers to the traditional through um, modern businesses, but still the traditional retailers still considered as the fastest growth. And then the growth rate is quite interesting. It has actually expands from 11.25 to 12.1 growth rate. So in this case, I think what is interesting that the market is growing, the um, the awareness is growing. So in this case, we would be able to see that halal industry is no longer locally, but is actually globally. Let's have a look on the sectors of the areas within the halal industry when we look at the just the food alone. Okay, we put aside all other sectors. Is now we do have other categories, but let's just have a look on the let's just look into the halal food market alone. If we think that the biggest market is in Asia, which is our countries where our country is, Indonesia, we are not wrong. And in fact, as you can see, it has been growing. It's just that if you have a look in terms of the growth for these particular areas, for these particular categories of countries, the growth is kind of like um, slightly it's the increment is there, but it's kind of like gradually increase probably with the numbers of the populations and whatnot, but it's not really exponentially in terms of growth. But if you have a look here from the right one especially, which we're going to see which continent is that, if we have a look here, the growth is kind of exponentially, and as well as the blue one, okay, but not in the purple and the green one. I think this kind of like perhaps we can see there are markets outside Asia that are tapping into the notions of halal as well. Okay, so now we're going to see where are these countries is. Perhaps if I can get some engagement from the students, where do you think the blue is? Which what would be the countries of in the blue one would represents what?
There is anyone? Maybe Europe, Professor.
Okay, so the blue one is Europe. How about right one? Anyone would want to make a guess? Come on, it's okay to make mistakes. In learning, mistakes is part of the learning process, which is fine. Anyone would like to unmute and say and guess where the right one is?
Africa maybe.
Sorry?
Africa.
Africa. Okay, Africa. Anyone else? How about the green one? Where do you think it is? Anyone? How many continents do we have in this world? Which one? Which one? Which one Middle East do you think it is? Because we are talking about the food market size, right? Which one do you think Middle East is? The green one, the purple one, the red one, the blue one? Which one is Middle East, do you think, in terms of food market size?
The green one.
The green one is Middle East. Okay. Okay. And what about the purple one? Not sure. Okay. Let's have a look. Okay. So Asia is the blue one is actually North America. Okay. The red one is Europe. Okay, so it's kind of like, I think blue and red is more or less similar. The forecast is kind of like almost one third of the market size. Okay, but what is interesting here, Middle East and Africa is only small portions of the forecasted market size, and the green one is actually Latin America. So if you have a look here, we have a market which we haven't been able to tap into, but it's actually really absorbed the product that been producing by the halal industry. So if you want to think again, uh, is it wise to just focus on the needs of the local market, where other part of the world is actually also embracing the halal notions of the food industry? All right, so let me just highlight the caveats. Okay, so I've highlighted the potentials, but let me highlight the caveats, the challenges that faced by the industry. First, we do have challenges in terms of certification complexity. Later on, I'm going to show you the extensive processes that comes with certifications, halal certifications. And one of the challenges is actually ensuring the consistent and reliable certifications across different regions. Okay, so later on, we're going to see how we can actually address these issues using big data and the AI. The next one is on supply chain integrity, especially in ensuring that all ingredients and products remain halal throughout the entire supply chain. Okay, so keep in mind, just because the things is halal, just because the meat is halal, but if you put in the same storage where possibly or where the non-halal product or non-halal meat is actually stored in the same room, and possibly it is contaminated by the non-halal meat, then obviously you are not complying with the supply chain integrity. So this is one of the things that perhaps we could think about, that it's not only just the status of that when you produce, when the things is good, or when the things is leaving the oven, for example. Okay, so things leaving the oven was halal, but then you put side by side with the food which is contain unhalal product, or was actually deep into things that is not halal, then obviously the status of halal at that time is already void. So in this case, I think we also have to think about the notions of integrity in the supply chain. The next one is on global harmonizations. And what does it really wants to address is on the harmonizations to align halal standards. Different countries, not only different countries, within the same country, different certification body might actually use different kind of approach, different kind of standard that each certification bodies might have put in house, put in place. So in this case, how we actually harmonize in terms of the halal standard, what is halal in Indonesia should also be what things that is perceived halal in different countries, in Malaysia, in US, in Middle East. So everybody should believe that it is, when it is halal throughout the world. But the problem is we do still have these issues of global harmonizations in the halal standard. The next one is on consumer awareness and education. Regardless that we are so close to the halal, but if you have a look worldwide, there are still people who are not really understand the halal standard well. So it means just because, especially what is interesting is that just because things is no pork, no lard, and people assume that it's actually halal without actually knowing that halal is not just based on porcine or pork. halal is also has to cover, again, as I said earlier, has to cover the entire sequence of how things is being produced. Yes, it doesn't have pork on, there's no pork, there's no lard, but if you actually put some alcohol or some things that or rum, for example, to the food, although it doesn't have any gelatin on it, but still it contains things that is not permissible in Islam. So I think this is the awareness among Muslims that we really have to inculcate further. But there are opportunities. Okay, so that was the challenges. But if we looking at it, there are opportunities that come with the sectors. First, there is a growing demand. I've showed you earlier how it actually been marketed into countries that actually less or Muslim were minorities, but still they actually really embraced the product, the halal product. The next one is the cross-sector collaboration, which in this case, how the finance, the logistics, the technologies, it actually works hand in hand to actually improve the platforms that allows halal to be more manageable and monitored. The next one is a standardizations of effort. Excuse my English. On the efforts towards the how to standardize and harmonize the halal certifications, as we've mentioned earlier, and how the big data can actually comes in and help the industry. So now we're going to have a look how the technology, in which in this case big data, can actually help the industry. I'm very sure when you heard big data, especially those from IT domain, you have been sort of brainwashed with the term that big data at least covers the three V's, right? The volume, the varieties, and velocity. How fast it is to actually collect data now, especially with the IoT, Internet of Things, that you can actually basically pump in data at millisecond basis. You can put a sensor at certain areas, and then knowing if things are beyond that particular temperature, more likely things will not be. For example, certain food might actually be growing some kind of fungus, and potentially it will actually harm. So all these kind of things will actually collected so fast. That's what velocity is. And varieties, we don't actually collect things that is structured. We usually been brainwashed as well in the past that things has to be structured. But now with the varieties of data, things can actually come in many ways. It could not be only structured data, which we have in our database. It can go beyond. For example, you can actually collect how people converse about your product. So that's the varieties of data. That is data. But then it just doesn't come in the structured format. It comes in very loose, very unstructured, but it's still usable. And in fact, it's very usable indeed. So these kind of things, how data comes in variety format and volume, because things come so fast. So you have a lot of data to actually analyze and process. But what comes with these things that I really have to put in red is that we have not been doing a good homework on ensuring the data veracity. Data veracity is the notions that you have all these data. It comes in many variety. Sorry, it comes in many varieties. It was collected so fast, and you have abundance of data. But the problem is how much of those being collected was actually useful and trustworthy. How can actually you rely on those data that you've collected? So in this case, this is one of the things that we have to take into account, that not only you should focus on the volume, not only you should focus on the different kind of data that you collected, on how fast it's being collected, but whether you have collected the right data, because then that would change the whole game. Otherwise, you collect things that is irrelevant to you. When you make some conclusions, you might actually come up with the wrong conclusions. So this is one of the things that you have to be careful of. And how do we then bring this data into, after you have all this, then of course to progress, you have to use analytics and try to get the values out of it by generating insight, looking at some potential insights that would change the industry. And also there are many techniques. If you have a look at it here, you can see it. There's so many things that you can actually utilize. For example, I'm very sure some of you are kind of familiar with deep learning, the neural networks, classifications. All these are kind of like very common for us. But the use cases, the implementations, one of the way to actually make or deliver back the values to the customer is by giving the personalized experience, customer engagement, product development, and innovation. So we improve the product, we deliver a much better values for the product to the customer, and of course we give the assurance that all this was actually taken care of. When we said halal, we know the end-to-end processes, and we know how to actually be accountable in terms of making sure everything is transparent and everything is traceable. Okay, any questions up to this stage? I know when I'm talking, I'm kind of like very, very excited, so I have to control myself. This is how I am if I'm talking, so I'm very fast, very bang, bang, bang. So if you feel that it is too fast, just let me know. Is it okay so far, especially for the students?
Mungkin mahasiswa no question until now. Okay, maybe we will
have that later.
finish.
Okay. Is my slide, is it still on my slide, or have I moved the slides to different screen?
Still in the slide.
Still in the slides. Okay,
yeah.
good. All right, good. Thank you. All right. Okay, so just want to share with everyone how extensive the Halal certification process is. If you have a look in here, just let me share how the process is in Malaysia. So as you can see in here, it takes months. So there's no way you would be able to get the Halal certifications in weeks or 1 or 2 weeks, especially. It doesn't happen like that. It takes a lot of effort, takes a lot of administrative effort to actually achieve the halal certification. So this is one of the reasons why I've heard that some tend to delay the halal certifications is because of the extensive processes that come with it. And also another thing is, of course, the fee, and then the documentation, series of documentations that they have to complete. So this is among the reasons why people opted to delay, because of all this administrative and the very extensive process. But if you're looking at it from the perspective of how we can actually leverage the big data technology, is that you would be able to think as an IT, for example, as an IT students, you would be able to think all this administrative actually comes in a structured format, right? So for example, say they have to complete a form, they have to complete certain details. All these details goes into the system. So when you're actually collecting all these informations, in a way, you would be able to sort of predict, or in a way you should be able to sort of optimize, in the sense of probably you don't have to complete the whole 4 pages of all those details. If things are kind of predictable, if things are kind of clear, you could actually provide some of those informations, and what they do is just to confirm and or comply whether all those informations that been provided by the system is actually correct. So you would be able to optimize it using the data that you have collected from past applications. You analyze, you look at the pattern, you propose whether these things is actually still necessary. For example, if certain details may no longer required, then probably you can actually remove all those data, because it's data. Things that you collected 20 years ago may not be relevant today. And this is why the big data is actually comes in to see out of so many data that we have, which one that we have to listen to. So this is why IT people, by right, you should have understanding on that when you collect the data, you also try to optimize whether the data that you've collected is actually still relevant to the industry today. And the next one is think about how you can actually integrate data from various sources. So for example, you have a list of database of all suppliers of certain ingredients in Indonesia. So when you have a company, say I want to apply for halal certifications, you have the database of all suppliers in Indonesia. So when I'm trying to get the certifications of halal in Indonesia, you would be able to know, okay, so as soon as I say I'm actually getting these ingredients from that particular supplier, you don't have to think about going through all the remaining process. I don't think you should go through all the remaining process when one of the supplier have deemed as not comply with halal, wouldn't it? So in this case, I think you have saved a lot of pain from all these processes using the data, because you have that data, you leverage on that data, you use that data properly to actually make the industry even more optimized, effective, efficient. So this is how we should think beyond just collecting data. We should think how we can actually use this data that we have collected to expedite the process, to improve the industries, to improve the organizations that are actually applying for halal certifications. Even better, if in one of the big data we have many kind of phases, right? We have descriptive, we have prescriptive, we have predictive. So prescriptive is even higher and complex than predictive. But if you would want to go into prescriptive, what is interesting is that maybe I'm giving you a hint. If you would want to do some research on this, is that, for example, if I want to make an industry, say I'm interested to create a small business that creates uh, as simple as, for example, disposable cups, for example. Now that a lot of people are going for campings, going for picnics, they, rather than bringing their own cups, they usually bring something that disposable, right? The paper cup. But we do know that certain recycled cup actually may not be coming from the right sources, and people have been giving a doubt whether this is something that is halal to be used, because although the things that you put in is halal, but if the container is not halal, then we might actually consume things that is not halal. So people are aware of this. So now if I say to you, I want to make this disposable cups or recyclable cups. What kind of supplier should I reach out to? Which one that I can reach out to? So later on, when I'm applying for halal certifications, it will not get back to me. Those things are already sort of in place. So you would be able to provide. This is what we call as prescriptive. You provide the alternatives. So these are the list of this is the list of ingredients that you need. This is the list of suppliers that you probably would want to reach out to. This is the list of machines that probably you would want to reach out to, and all those kind of things. You could actually help the small businesses to come up with or preparing the halal before they actually jump into the industry. Would that be wonderful, right? So in this, I think we have to think beyond just collecting, beyond just analyzing, but making it is into more prescriptive nature. You are helping them before the actual process comes in. And of course, we have a lot of things that we can actually do to realize that. We can use a machine learning. We have so many techniques, classifications. We have clustering and all those kind of thing. Data mining techniques, which I think surely would be more than enough to enable us to do such a thing. Let me just give you some examples, though. I think sometimes when it's too conceptualized, might not be easy to imagine. So let me just give you an example of one of my master students' work. So happened that Prophet Wandi reached out to me last time that he has been collecting a lot of data and then he would want to know whether this data can actually be utilized in interesting in meaningful ways so that it would help the halal industry. So he has been collecting all experiments, his team, his he has the lab and whatnot. So there's abundant of data which has not been utilized in interesting way, as he would put it, as big data, with big data technology. So he proposed one of the students to actually undertake the research. So I guided the students and I said, okay, so these are the things that you have to look at into. First, you have to really understand the data, how they actually collected the data, how you have to understand the story behind the data. That's usually my one-on-one when I guide students when it comes to data analytics. So you have to understand the story behind the data. Who actually did this experiment? Where they do this experiment? How they collected the data? What are the machines that they collected? I mean, like, even to that level, what kind of machines produce these informations? When we get this from different researcher, do they use the same machine, or do they possibly use different machines, but the kind of parameters are still the same? So all these kind of stories were actually collected, and after we are sure that it is all comparable, because the data comes from different machines, different universities. So when we look at the data, so we are kind of understand the stories behind the data. So what was the research is about? They actually, what happens in the lab, they are trying to test all this food that contain porcine, which is pork, and porcine, or pork that has been combined with chicken, pork that has been combined with fish, pork that has been combined with other meat, and even the meat itself. For example, the fish, the goat meat, and so on and so forth. And bovine is actually uh, beef. Okay, so in this case, we're looking at it from many different kind of natures of the ingredients. So when we tested, it's kind of interesting that when it comes to porcine, and we said, mashallah, this is the reason why, one of the reason why it is so distinct, why Allah said it's not allowed, because it's so distinct, it's so unique, it's so easily differentiated from any other meats. As you can see in here, as soon as it has porcine, the class positions, looking at all the parameters that the machines has, it will be able to predict that it has porcine. And then, as you can see in here, the class positions is 99.93%. So it means that that sort of embedded, be that I don't have pork, but I fried pork before I fried chicken, for example. Even that alone, it actually kind of stick to the chicken itself. So this is what is interesting, that everything has been touched by porcine. You would be able to detect that. The machine, the data shows that it can be detected, and we come up with all these structure. So this is actually comes from ID3 algorithm, the decision tree algorithm. So it actually shows that when it comes to halalness, the status of halal, it can, especially when it comes to not halal, you can easily, as soon as it touch, be that in fish or meat, as soon as it has been fried in the same oil as when you fry the porcine, the pork, it is absolutely detectable. It affects the absorbance, it affects the some other elements. I'm not really sure what are these some of these factors, but it is one of the factors that actually comes and indicated that this is one of the predictors for non-halal. So this is what is interesting, and mashallah, when we analyze this, this is very inspiring to see that how the biology the all the things that we have learned in biology, that when you mix halal and non-halal, most likely you get contaminated, and it is easily distinguishable. This is what we learned that from our data, through data mining as well. let's proceed to the next one. Let's just harness, and how do we harness the potential of our AI? Again, as I said earlier, there's extensive process, right, on the halal certifications. So how do we use AI? So I think I hope everybody can relate. When we're talking about AI, it's actually is like one step sort of beyond the data mining process. So you would want to go into a much more complex technique, and the utilizations, the use cases of halal AI in halal industry is very diverse. But if I can pick just one example of how we can actually optimize the halal certifications, we can actually, for example, we can actually again use the data from various sources. Just now, how the suppliers actually use the ingredients, um, and how the production facilities. Again, I don't use pork in my cooking, but you are actually purchasing, or you actually ordering the meat of the halal chicken, so called, from a supplier that actually put the chicken and the pork in the same container, which possibly things were contaminated. That alone, again, as I said, might actually jeopardize the halal status. And so this is how we can actually use AI. Potentially, now people have actually used blockchain, so everything is kind of scanned through. That you cannot mix this and that. Example that easily trigger the alarm and things like that. So there's so many implementation has been put in place to actually improve that. So with the AI, it's even more interesting because you have been collecting all these informations. Now let's again push all that informations to the machine learning, and perhaps we can actually use the data that we have to predict even more accurate and reliable informations. I'm not sure if you have seen this. This is kind of one of my another PhD, sorry, I think master students is doing this, trying to look at it from different what do you call that, um, phases of logistic processes with blockchain. So if you have a look here, just now, because we're talking about end to end, right? So when you are produce things, of course you are getting the input, the raw materials from the supplier. So you also need to know how the supplier actually produce such raw materials. Again, if I'm talking about the usable disposable cups, you have to know if I'm talking about recycle product. We have to know how they actually recycle it, the process of recycling, how the process of recycling is actually take place, how they actually get the raw materials from. Even you get things raw from them, still we have to know how that raw material is actually being produced. So that's the one, and people have actually using this or using the blockchain. So for example, analyzing the batch number. So in the case things goes wrong, for example, you know that some product has been contaminated, you don't have to recall the whole products. You just have to recall the product based on the batch. People have been, especially for example, IKEA have actually produced a lot of product using the batch number. So when the things are actually, for example, one of the defect found in one of the product, you don't have to cancel the whole product, you just cancel the batch of the product that being affected. So that's one of the example. And then the logistic operators, how it's actually delivered, the warehouse. Okay, so for example, when you're using sensors and whatnot, so when the things comes in, you know that certain product, for example, if it's halal, they have to be stored in particular locations, which is uh, further away, because you cannot perhaps create specifically for that particular product. But if you have requirements, the blockchain can actually sort of be used as a certificate to see that, okay, so this product cannot be put in the same place as other product, which is potentially not halal. So you have to put in specific areas designated for the halal product, and the cert that comes with the blockchain only validates the locations that they are actually being placed. And of course, the last one is a consignee. Okay, just to conclude, I know I've been talking a lot. So just to conclude, things that we would want to highlight here is that as many technology you can put into the AI and the big data industry, I think in the halal industry, I really hope that we could start to think about the ethical considerations. Now that everything is just a chat GPT away, I know it's easy to actually get statement, but keep in mind things that being processed in chat GPT especially is may not necessarily coming from the right or valid sources. In some case, we call it as hallucinating. Okay, so when the details that you get is hallucinating, you cannot use that as something that is um, valid to justify your argument. In this case, the decision making still have to be transparent. You should justify if things are not considered as halal. You need to have all those ulama, or I don't know what would be the scholars that actually can justify, can help you to explain that this is not acceptable. Although probably the things in ChatGPT said it is permissible, but again, that how reliable AI is would very much depend on what would be the input. And when it comes to AI models in ChatGPT, I think everyone knows, and it is actually even declared by ChatGPT that the input is coming from many sources, and it may not be valid sources for us to rely on. So we have to still we still have to use our brain and then filter what information is acceptable and what not. Okay. And also another thing that I would highlight, I would actually promote is the fostering collaborations. Learn from different experts. One of the blasts I found it in my throughout my career is that I always put myself willing to be facilitators, as long as for me, as long as if I can help any experts to use the technologies. For me, that's enough already. So it doesn't have to be that I have to lead the project or I have to get the grants. For me, that would be the second priority, but the first priority, whether the collaborations enable me to learn. So I would also promote, I would also encourage, especially the students, to learn, to engage people from different domain. Like for example, if you are in civil engineering, don't only just talk with the civil engineering students, talk with people from um, electrical engineering, for example, talk with the people from IT, talk to the people, for example, from the health sectors. One of the things that I learned the most is when I am helping the team from the hospitals. It is very interesting to know that so many data that they've collected, they were not actually able to utilize it because they don't know how to pinpoint the areas for analysis. Like for example, they do know that certain things needs to be improved, but how to use those data to address certain problem. If only we've been talking to the people in the health sectors, maybe all of these kind of things would be able to address earlier. So the same thing, like for example, now I think we do have a lot of issues with the constructions, infrastructures, and all those kind of things. I'm not sure whether you've read the news this morning that one of the big bridges in one of the big bridge in US was actually collapsed, and it will take months to actually rebuild. So in this case, how the people in civil engineering, if it's avoidable, how the IT that we've been collecting, all these bridges have sensors, all these bridges have all those sort of probably AI enabled tools to actually give you some insight that nope, this is not safe. I think we have to divert the traffic. I think we have to divert the traffic because it's overload, and maybe we have to improve the infrastructure before it's actually collapsed. So things are surely insightful if only we communicate and if only we share. And the same thing in halal industry. We would be able to improve the service. We would be able to improve the product if we communicate and share our knowledge. And last, continuous learning and adaptations. Technology grows so fast to the level that you will not be able to keep up everything in one day. So I think I would suggest that always keep into account, always put yours. One of the things that I would encourage to my students as well to always read. Now ChatGPT is easily readable, but then again, I would still encourage people to grab a book and then just enrich your understanding about some trivial things that you think is trivial. For example, you might think that, okay, so big data is no longer a hype now. So what do you think with the notions of data? How your data has actually been used by all these e-commerce platform, and how it actually have shaped you? For example, things that just think into account take into account, have you not been sort of shaped by how AI actually drive you on daily basis, knowing from opening the phone you sort of get a pops up, okay, so why not you look at the shoes, okay, in the afternoon you open the WhatsApp and suddenly an app show up, why don't you look at the dress, all those kind of things. It's kind of like popping up here and there, but it's kind of triggering your mindset that, okay, so these are the things that I've seen, or maybe I should think about it tomorrow, and so on. So this is one of the things that you have to be careful. That's why you have to keep learning, because it moves so fast and the regulations move so fast. If the halal industry are not able to absorb, adapt with it, I'm worried we might be the one that actually jeopardizing the notions of halal itself. Nauzubillah, summa nauzubillah min dhalik. So I think this is one of the things that I would, this is some of the things that I could share. I would want to dig further into the technicalities, but I don't know, because I've heard that it's from different disciplines. There's civil, electrical, IT. So I don't know what would be like common to everyone, knowing that I myself is from my undergrad is from information system. My master is also from information system, but I took the leap. I moved away from IT during my PhD. I actually did economics because I want to look at different things. I want to focus on different things. So that's why an IT slash economist slash I don't know what else that comes with me. That's why probably I cannot go too deep into the technicalities. But feel free to raise any concern or any questions. Hopefully, I could go further in the directions that you wish. Okay, so I think that will be all from me. I hope it is clear. I don't know. Just let me know if it's not clear. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Mira. So it's opened my mind. There's whole things, yeah. We don't know before about halal industry. Maybe for me, it's just pork larks or just process halal process. But now maybe we need to consider about the packaging, the source of another ingredient, and maybe we never think about it before.
Yep.
So big data play many things to help us, especially Muslim, to really consider about halal ecosystem. Yeah. So to all of our participants, now time to ask. Yeah, if you have any question and you cannot deliver in English, you can deliver it in Bahasa Indonesia. Feel free about it. So you can raise hand or asking question directly. Okay. To Asri Wahyuni. Okay, Asri Wahyuni, can ask a question.
Oke, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Honorable Professor Dr. Mira Kartiwi, Miss, and for our moderator, Dr. Tika Siregar. Good evening, right?
Afternoon.
Okay, Miss, I wanna ask something, but I think it is a little bit out of topic, but I think it is important for me. As we know, in Indonesia, we have industrial about food, right? So when there are industry that don't have halal certificate but still produce their goods, why are they allowed to operate? For example, in Indonesia, Migacon, as we know, and Mixway, and a lot of people in Indonesia, I think, know that brand, right? mixue, migacuan that so viral, right? But for my, I know the that industry that place for it uh, have just received a halal certificate just baru beberapa bulan gitu loh, Miss. But
It's okay,
even
actually.
before obtaining the halal label, they are already operating. Is this permissible? And this is the halal certificate only to attract customer, right? Uh, Halal certificate just for attract customer or how? Because as we know, in Indonesia is a country with a majority Muslim population. Oh, before uh, my name is Asri Wahyuni, Miss. I'm majoring in mechanical engineering. Thank you.
Thank you, Asri. Maybe one question, Prof. One
Okay,
question.
sure,
Okay.
sure, right. Okay, so thank you so much. Oh, in UAE we usually call it sister. So Sister Asri, thank you so much for the questions. Uh, it is very interesting, and I think that's very relevant questions. It's not out of the topic, and in fact, it's very relevant to this topic. How the
Product, yeah. Product.
sorry, how the establishment, the food establishment in Indonesia have been operating for quite some time. I think it actually applies to a lot of countries, even here in Malaysia. We do have a lot of eateries that have not yet received the halal certificate, but they've been operating, they've been serving Muslims. And then what is interesting is that after a few months or maybe a few years after operating, that only they get the certifications. Maybe we should look at it from two perspectives. First, again, coming back to my point earlier that educating the citizens when it comes to halal, educating the people and the Muslims when it comes to halal is still ongoing homework. We haven't finished that homework yet. We still have obligations to educate Muslims about halal. It was to my surprise when I actually arrived in Australia during my undergrad, and then I came across a few friends that are actually eating some food from one eateries from one restaurant, and I said, "Wow, isn't that restaurant have pork as well?" Yeah, but my food doesn't have pork. So it means that they don't understand things that actually being chopped or being cut in the same kitchen using the same knife is actually meant for contamination. So in this case, I think we have still have homework. So it's good that you raised that point. Means that you are aware. Halal is one of the things that we should do. But the next one is another point that comes with it, how we could actually leverage on how we can actually make use of data in promoting this. I've came across a few cases in which um, I came across a few cases in which we actually have data collected from I'm not sure whether you're familiar with Yelp or Google review. So there are some eateries. People have been conversing. People have been talking about, okay, so this food is nice, but I'm not sure whether it's halal. So all those kind of things. I wish that these eateries have halal status so that we would be able to actually go and enjoy the food and things like that. So it kind of pushes the vendors, the companies to actually go for halal certification. So this is another things that we could probably think less of, but it actually works. So this is another push factors. We call it as push factors on how you could actually promote the ecosystem better. So ask people or get people to or get the restaurant or get the companies to go for halal certification to give us a peace of mind, despite it is for consumers per se or for promoting per se. It doesn't really matter. What matters is that it has been endorsed in terms of halal, so we are safe to consume it. I think that's what matters the most. So that is the second one. So which means that we create the data, we pump in the data to make use to ensure them to ensure that the food and beverages companies to give us a peace of mind to consume the product. So that's the second. The third one, I think we have to understand taking, like as I've mentioned earlier, to go through this certification process takes a while. So I could perceive the possibilities that when they said it is halal and the things is still in the process, it is still in the process. As long as they've declared that the halal, I mean, like if they're really concerned with the halal, usually during the process they make it public. So we are in the process of halal auditing. We are trying to get our certifications. In the meantime, if you would want to wait until we receive the halal certifications, then please do so. We will inform the public once we get the certifications. That usually one of the approach that some businesses has, but some other businesses say that we are trying, but you are more than welcome to consume because we know that we have been taking care of our ingredients and whatnot in the halal so that we are ready for the certifications. So I think it goes back to your own understanding. If you feel that you are comfortable knowing that things are in the process and you feel that it is safe to be consumed, then I think some people actually adopted that. But personally, I myself, if the thing, if it's already in the process, and usually, I don't think we are running out of options, right? To not, for example, some eateries are still in the process. I think I could wait for the certifications to come out while we still have many other thousands or millions of options available around. So I think that would be the issues that probably you would raise. You had raised just now. I'm not sure whether it has answered your questions. Does it answer your question?
Is it answers, Asri?
Answer, Miss. Thank you very much for your
So thank you.
Yes, I know what to do when I encounter something like that again, right? Thank you.
Great.
Okay.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
Maybe from another student from information engineering, informatic engineering, because it's big data and artificial intelligence. Yours, your
I
major.
see. Wow. Okay.
So maybe I will, I will ask first. Yeah, the second question from me because
Sure. Sure.
I'm so interesting in this topic about. So if you want to provide a halal ecosystem, especially halal food lah, halal industry, ya. So many things we need to prepare to make sure it is halal. From data from the source of ingredients, the packaging. So the data that can make sure it is halal is the source of ingredient of packaging. Maybe I will say plastic for package the food. So is
Right.
it possible for future everything needs to be code or to be barcode to make easily to make as easy to record? Is it really halal? If it is so, if it is like that, so for now, I think if we want to, jika kita ingin sukses industrinya dalam ke depan dalam industri halal, kita harus mulai melakukan pengkodean dari industri-industri yang kecil gitu ya. Ingredient kecil dalam membangun sebuah produk itu harus dari sekarang ada kode-kode khusus yang menandakan bahwa ini dari sumber yang halal. Apakah seperti itu untuk memudahkan ke depannya industri ini bisa bangun, bisa bangkit dalam industri halal food
Yeah. Yeah.
khususnya?
It could be governed, bisa dibangun melalui kode atau I think what comes with that is, I think, the commitment. Even you don't have a code as halal, like for example, I think now most of the barcode that we have, the first few digits actually shows the countries, right? So in this case,
Yes.
I'm not sure whether we should go into that level of coding per se, but at general level, what we could do is actually trying to get all these um, establishment companies that have been actually getting halal certifications to just pull them into one single repositories. I think now we don't really share these data, right? Like for example, how many out of the establishment have been, like for example, in Malaysia alone. So how many has been certified by Jakim? How many certified by? So all these kind of things we don't really share. If only we have this one single platform that consolidate all these data. If I don't have ingredients would be able to help me to produce halal, I could easily find, okay, so there's one companies in Indonesia that actually produce this and has been certified as halal. Building that ecosystem, I think, is the first step because we don't used to with sharing all these informations. We don't share informations, unfortunately. We think that sharing means that we are making ourselves vulnerable, which I don't think that's the case. When you share, we are stronger because when we share, we know that we are complete in a sense that things that I don't know now some people knows, then I can learn from other people who knows about this. So I think coding would be good, but that would take a lot of commitments because you have to standardize, and usually
Yeah.
when things are standardized, people are having a hard time to consolidate, give and take. But at least just share informations. How many of us getting certifications from one certification bodies? How many of us getting? Because especially in certain countries that have so many certification bodies, uh, how do we know actually getting from the certification bodies is actually, I mean, like how long the process and things like that. So I think the first step would be just share the informations, and if we share the informations, that ecosystem will be naturally built, I think.
Okay. Clear. And maybe another
Okay.
question?
I just want to add, Dr. Tika, in this kind of data sharing has been done a lot in health. If I can share, let me just have a look on. Maybe I'm not sure whether this is can be done in the halal industry, but I've been trying to sort of nudge or giving a hint to friends in the halal industry. We have in health sectors, we have something called health map. Let me just
No.
pull this up to the screen so everyone can actually see it. Um, my goodness, let's say. Okay. Okay, so okay, so this is in health sectors. Okay, so this is in health sectors. Um, what is interesting with this repository is that it actually crowdsources all informations on health related informations from all over the world. But to actually be one of the source for informations, you will have to be sort of audited or sort of validated by certain, I think even the health map project itself. So what is interesting here, the information is coming from, for example, for illnesses. If I'm traveling to Doha next week, I would be able to know in Qatar what are the kind of illnesses that has been, or the kind of for example, a vaccine that I have to take before I'm traveling there, what kind of illnesses that actually coming there, the pandemic and things like that. All these kind of things is actually shared here. I was thinking like, why don't we have similar platform that you can actually know in this part of the world, I could get to access to this is halal, this raw materials halal. So if I want to produce a product, I don't have to start from zero. I can just identify these other raw materials. So means that some other materials perhaps I have to get from other countries, but things that is local, things that is close to me, I can easily find from here. So I think this concept easily implementable in health industry, if only we are willing to share the data. Okay.
Okay. So there's one of example, yeah, about collecting information not from zero. So we can collect historical data
Right.
in the country. Okay, another question from Afam. Okay, silahkan Pak Afam. Time is yours.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Sebenarnya mau nanya pakai bahasa Inggris, cuma agak kompleks. Jadi mungkin saya pakai bahasa Indonesia saja ya.
Boleh.
Jadi mengenai tadi yang dibahas terkait kompleksitas dari sharing datanya ya. Sejauh ini apakah sudah pernah dilakukan sebagaimana crawling data ya? Jadi data untuk bisa kita mendapatkan big data itu terkait halal produk itu atau halal food, dilakukan semacam crawling data dari semua data yang ada, entah dengan menggunakan text mining ataupun yang lainnya, sehingga tanpa perlu platform tertentu pun sebenarnya kita bisa mengambil data yang kita anggap spesifik dengan keperluan kita gitu. Nah, apakah sejauh ini sudah terjadi seperti itu atau mungkin sudah melebihi itu? Saya kira itu aja.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Pak Afham. Can I answer in English or do you want me to answer in Bahasa?
In English is okay.
Okay. All right. So I think in terms of projects, there has been quite a lot of projects that kind of trying to do similar things, if not more extensive. So I remember the last time, I think a few years ago, Prof. Irwandi and one of the prof here actually asking kind of similar things. Can we come up with some consolidated database to know that all these are products that have been endorsed in halal certifications by many certification bodies? And of course, one of the easiest is to crawl the especially to crawl the metadata on the internet and then see whether we could get some kind of pattern. The problem is, again, as much as those things are doable, I think we have issues. Again, as I said earlier, the standard of halal certifications in different countries are different. So things that are still exist in the metadata may no longer actually be valid certifications, because I think you know that when it comes to Google, you don't dissolve the data, is not dissolved, it's not deleted right away after it still exists in the cache. So when you're actually trying to crawl those data, you might actually crawl the cache rather than crawling the active database. And now a lot of establishment, a lot of certification bodies put it under not as a public domain, but put it as a kind of subscribe thing, and they want to commercialize these informations. If only, I mean, like if you are required these informations, you need to subscribe for certain. So all these kind of things makes it harder for to crawl for public domain, unless again you are given certain access. So I think effort wise, it has been initiated in many directions. Even some of the certifications body have concern whether all the things that they have not. So, for example, I know some certificate has been retracted, have been pulled out, like cancelled. Some halal certification because the eateries are not complying with the requirements of halal, so they take back the certifications. So when things are actually taken back, but things in the websites, maybe they pull out from the websites, but they still converse that they are actually claiming halal in the social medias. So all these kind of things, I think this is why having one consolidated portal would be ideal. But if not, I was trying to see whether we could actually do crowdsource on supplying information, because then you know what is relevant. Like, for example, we in Indonesia have one bodies, but things that has been retracted, halal certifications that has been cancelled in Indonesia, whether the people in Malaysia knows and they are still eating the food. Just for example, things like that. I think when we have a proper mechanism, I think we could well get the data. But crawling, I'm very sure many projects have done that. It's just that, again, things that they've crawled, they don't share, so we don't know how deep, how extensive the information has been collected. Have I answered your question? Sorry. Does it answer your questions?
Okay, that's enough answered. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's about data veracity ya,
The
Prof
veracity,
ya.
yeah, the veracity.
Veracity,
So
trusting
whether what
data.
we collected is trustworthy, yes, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, to another student maybe there is another question. Because so many information we get today, maybe you're interested in the big data or in the introducing about halal industry because it will be the trending, yeah. We see the graphic, it will be a well grown of in halal industry in Europe, in USA, and Indonesia as a agricultural country. Maybe need to prepare to make portfolio in halal, yeah. So our raw material labeling in halal, so can use to be a product in, yeah, especially in halal food first.
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe
Especially
another.
for business, what I would suggest for the students to also explore is on the business across border. For example, what I meant by that, if you go to trend Google, so trend.google.com, you and then you put in halal, you would be able to know there are many countries that put halal together. Like for example, let me just share this, just in case you haven't tried this. Um, okay. Okay, so if you go to trends.google.com, this is what is the trend of the search trending, the search trend in Google. So if you, for example, if you search for halal, okay, so the halal term. So in Malaysia, if you would want to have a look on the past day, for example, in Malaysia, these are the trend of the search. So if you would want to go worldwide, for example, where are these information is actually coming from? So if you scroll down, this is why knowing the technology is also uh, requires critical thinking, because if you have a look in here, a lot of halal search, for example, in the past day, I'm giving the past day, yeah, it's not even past year, past day alone, it actually comes from a lot of Muslim minority countries, for example, Australia, Brazil, Canada. So when if we have a look at Malaysia and Indonesia, it's not much different in terms of the numbers of search. Like for example, in Indonesia 26, in Australia is 14, so which is like half of it, and Malaysia, for example, 46. So all these kind of things, it shows us we are not the only one that talks about halal, and then perhaps you would want to know. Say we would want to go with 12 months. Okay, so if you have a look here, again, Singapore have been conversing about halal, Brunei, Malaysia, Indonesia, and also France. Okay, so in this case, you would be able to know later on what are actually being conversed. So here, for example, what converse together with halal. Uh, for example, here the topic of the product, the topic of the brand, the topics of cuisine when it comes to halal. So in here we can actually have a look what are the brand that being conversed a lot. If you would want to go further, for example, you would want to go, say, finance. Okay, so you would want to go. Is there any overlapping between halal and finance? So maybe it doesn't show us per se, but we can actually see when it comes to halal and finance, a lot of things at the moment still in the first three coming from ASEAN, so Indonesia, Malaysia, and Singapore. But it is interesting to know that okay, so halal and finance is also being conversed in Netherlands. It's being conversed in France. So you
Europe.
could actually provide a product that may not be for Indonesian. You actually provide a product for people in France. You actually provide a product for people in Netherlands. So business across borders, we call it. You could think of business across borders. So the people that your employee here, but it's for different countries. So you can explore that.
So we will wait until the halal definition, halal ecosystem definition should be the same in all country. Is it, Prof?
My message is more to that when we are talking about halal, the halal is not only for Muslim majority. The halal is for the world. So even people in Netherlands are talking about halal. Even people in the France is talking about halal. So when you are building a halal product, don't only just focus to the people in Indonesia. Probably doesn't want to serve. You probably doesn't want to serve. You probably doesn't want to create a food for Indonesians. Then create a food for halal food for people in Netherlands. Why not? Then create a product for example, I want to create an investment, halal investment, but I don't get a lot of people from Indonesia to invest. Then maybe why don't you create a halal investment for people in Australia? Why not? Because we don't have many platforms like that in Australia. So think beyond the locals, think globally, because halal is global now.
Many people in another country, maybe not majority in Muslim,
Mhm.
need halal too. Yeah, need things in halal condition too. Yeah, not just in Indonesia or
Absolutely.
Asia.
Yep.
Okay, maybe last question for our student. It is the special time. You need to go to Malaysia if you want to discuss to Prof. Mira. Today is the time. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Maybe. Our dean will bring close statement before we finish this class. Okay. Maybe from before we finish this class, Professor Mira can bring a closing statement to trigger us study more about halal industry because it's strategic strategic industry.
It is. It is. Yeah. So if I could give a closing statement, I would like to highlight when since that all of us are Muslims, and this is Islamic university, UIKA is Islamic university. I think what is interesting for us is that we are built in with values. So every innovations, every progress that we actually achieve through our life, work, and whatnot, it's actually geared towards our values. We would want to be rahmatan lil alamin, the blessed for all mankind. So halal is one of the things that would be able for us to actually help the mankind, because when you are talking about halal, when it comes to slaughtering or slaughtering, right, cutting the animals, we are doing it in such a way so it doesn't hurt the animals. We are doing in such a way that when we are consume a product, we don't litters, we don't damage the environment. So that is what halal is all about. We're taking care of the environment as when we produce a product. That's why it's very meticulous, it's very careful process. So I hope that this is not only for the students that in certain domain, but it is for all of us. When we are producing technology, please think about the end goals in mind, that everything that we produce has to be halal. The food, the money, the process, and the system, it has to be halal. Otherwise, the things ingredients is halal, but we design the system in not halal way, so things might be corrupted. Auzubillah, auzubillah min dzalik. So this is for the future leaders, all the students. You are the future leaders, the future talents. Broad your mind and deliver what is we supposed to do, which is become the rahmatan lil alamin, inshallah. Okay, so all the best. Thank you. Assalamualaikum.
Thank you for Professor Mira. So we now hear the closing statement from our Dean of Faculty of Engineering and Science, Dr. Muhammad Nanang Prayudianto. Time is yours.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Tika. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I believe during the 2 hours, all of us have obtained food knowledge, and it's very important for us. I'd like to read the Quran and the Al-Baqarah 168. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Ya ayuhan nasu kulu mimma fil ardi halalan thayyibah. Wahai manusia, makanlah makanan yang halal dan baik yang terdapat dalam bumi. This is from Quran that we have to obey, that this is instruction for Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. This international class whose main theme is transforming the halal industry, harnessing the power of big data and AI. We have learned a lot from the class session delivered by amazing speaker, Professor Dr. Mia Kartivi. We have shared her interesting work and her experience. Once again, on behalf of the committee and from the Faculty of Engineering and Science, thank you for delivering such important material so that all of us can deepen our knowledge. Furthermore, I would like to thank the presenter and participant who have joined the class from Indonesia and abroad. Certainly, that speaker has presented the application transforming halal industry, harnessing the power of big data. Also, I sincerely hope that through representation and discussion afterward, all of us can contribute the development and implementation of AI in Indonesia halal industry. Finally, I would like to thank all the committee members for organizing this international class and ensuring that this proceed smoothly. I would also like to apologize for any inconvenience that you might experience during this class. Ladies and gentlemen, there's a saying in bahasa Indonesia, ada perjumpaan, ada perpisahan, which means when there is a meeting, there will be a goodbye. So thank you for you, Dr. Mira Kartiwa and Dr. Tika and Dr. Setia, once again for your participation, and wish all you safe journey home. I hope that you enjoy our class, and I do also hope that we can meet again in the next our next national class. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Okay, we go into the last session is photo session. Okay, to all participants, you can open your camera so we can take a photo together. Helmi, yeah. Helmi? Ready, Helmi? Okay. Helmi? Oke, Helmi sudah dimulai pengambilan foto.
Oke.
Oke, Helmi silakan kasih aba-aba.
Wait.
Student, if you want to, would you like to open your camera so we can take a photo together? Oke, foto pertama.
Baik, kita hitung 1, 2, 3. Baik, Ibu, sudah.
Baik. Okay, thank you for all participants. Have enjoyed this international class. Thank you to all committee of faculty, engineering and science, Universitas Ibnu Khaldun Bogor, and to our guest lecturer for all information. This class very exciting. I hope we can meet in another class. I'm apologize to everything that I have made. I hope so we can meet again in another international online class. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Terima kasih.
Thank you everybody.
Thank you everyone. Assalamualaikum. Sama-sama.
Sebelumnya yang belum isi absen bisa diisi terlebih dahulu absennya.
Sudah, Bu.
Sudah, Bu.
Iya, ditunggu nanti ya. Sekarang kalian bisa ngomong pakai bahasa Indonesia.
Baik, Bu.
Sertifikatnya dikirim online bukan, Bu?
Helmi, kau kirimnya online apa pakai si cepat? Apa pakai si lambat, Mi? Mana sih Mas Helmi ini? Sebentar kita tanya dengan tim ininya dulu. Loh, mana nih? Oh, kalau nggak Helmi, Mas Asep. Sertifikat dikirim kemana, Mas Asep? Oh, jawabannya sudah dijawab. Dikirim ke email masing-masing. Jadi, tenang aja Asri, bisa ditunggu di emailnya ya. Jangan ditunggu di kos-kosan, nggak ada.